because they don't want the Assyrians to learn their language, so they're teaching their kids, the kids there, to learn the Kurdish language instead of the Assyrian language. Do you see what they're doing? They're indoctrinating the kids there too.
Welcome to another episode of the Olive Roots podcast. I'm your host, Chose Ayub. Today, I have an Assyrian digital creator, and his name is Emmanuel Romanos. Emmanuel,
Thank you so much, Josie, for inviting me onto your show. It's a pleasure, brother.
man, thank you for taking the time to be. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm thankful that you were able to join me today, brother.
Yeah, and please forgive me if I slur my words or look a little drowsy. That food coma is still lingering on a little bit.
It's all the turkey and whatnot.
Man, you don't even know where we started with that meal last night. But yeah.
Oh man, I got the itis. You know what the itis is?
No, tell me.
It's like when you get the food coma after you eat turkey, all these chemicals start making you sleepy. It's called the itis, I guess.
All the additives and preservatives and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Emmanuel, thank you so much. I would like to kick off the show with your identity. So, if you can share with the audience and me your ethnic background, your heritage, where's your family from, where were you born, and where you are today. So, the stage is yours, brother.
Sure, thank you. Well, first of all, if your audience is what I'm assuming is biblically literate, I'm sure they've heard of this name in the Old Testament a few times. I am Assyrian, and basically, we're the oldest civilization in recorded history. There might have been older civilizations, but as of right now, we are the oldest civilization ever recorded. We were the first to create language, we created the wheel. We derived from the Sumerian Akkadian civilizations, and the Assyrian people were the inhabitants of the cradle of civilization, and basically the whole entire world came out of what we created, my ancient ancestors. So there's a lot of pride in that as an Assyrian. That was one of our main speaking points when we're educating people on who we are. But we're much more than that today. Today we're politicians, we're interviewers, we're engineers, we're doctors, we're all across the whole entire world. And I'm not full Assyrian. I'm part Armenian and also part Jordanian. I'm 12.5% Armenian, 25% Jordanian, and like, what does that make me? 63, 64% Assyrian. So, though I'm not fully Assyrian, it's just the thing that I say that I am because I speak the language. That's the church that I grew up in. I grew up in the Assyrian Church of the East, which is an apostolic church founded by the disciple Doubting Thomas, one of the original 12 disciples of Jesus Christ. He founded the church that I go to, and we have a apostolic succession for the patriarchy, meaning basically our version of the pope is called a patriarch, and they are directly elected one after another after they get sick or pass away or get too old to fulfill that position anymore. It's the same way the pope does it, where they're directly from that line of the original 12 disciples and then also the original 70 disciples after the 12 that witnessed Christ. So there's a lot of cross um you know pollination, I would say, between the religion of Christianity and the Assyrian people, because the Assyrian people, heavily mentioned within the Old Testament, mentioned a bit in the New Testament, and our people were visited by some of the main contributing people of Christianity. And then the Assyrian people became the forebearers of Christianity as well, and carrying that torch forward, spreading us all the way from China to India. The Assyrian Church of the East can be found all across the West. And so we just planted seeds left and right. And I told myself when I started making content, I'm not going to talk about two things. I'm not going to talk about being Christian. I'm not going to talk about being Assyrian because I don't want to use my identity as a crutch, as a thing that got me through doors. I wanted it to be my skill set. I wanted to be who I was as a person, my talent to get me through the door, not who I was born into and what I am that way without choosing to be so. Now all of my content is about being Assyrian and being Christian. God laughed at that plan and said, "Listen, I'm going to use you for my plan." So that's pretty much a summary of who I am, my background, and what I'm doing now. But my parents, they were born and raised in the Middle East. My mom was born in Jordan. She was raised in Kuwait. Came to America in the 90s. My father was born in Baghdad, even though his parents were from Iran. He ended up going to Greece, and then from Greece, he went to Yonkers, New York. From Yonkers, New York, he went to uh, Orange County, Northridge, California, and that's where he met my mom in the mid to late 90s. So then from there, they went to Arizona. They had me and my younger brother, and we were raised in the faith, like I was mentioning, the Assyrian Church of the East, but I was baptized in a Catholic church. And from there, devout Christians our whole entire lives, not much deviation, but I've had my doubts and my struggles and my battle reconciling with a few incidences and theological disputes in my life and between the people that I learned Christianity from. And it strengthened my religion at the end of the day, my faith in the religion at the end of the day. And yeah, man, I don't know if you have any specific questions you want to ask to follow up with that, but that's pretty much a little basic summary.
That was beautifully said, man. So, wow, what a blend, bro. You got your mom is Jordanian, and then she lived in Kuwait,
Hmm.
and then your father is from Iraq. He's from Iran, but he lived in modern day Iraq.
Hmm.
And then which part is the Armenian from?
My dad is a quarter Armenian. My mom's half Jordanian. So, yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. That's
I say
amazing.
I'm a Middle Eastern mutt. That's my go-to line nowadays after finding out
You're
all of that.
you're a Levantine, bro.
Yeah, I did a DNA test and it says that like 65% of my DNA comes from the Levant. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So tell people a little bit about where was Assyria in comparison to today, which region it was, what countries did it involve,
Yeah.
and yeah, just so for the audience that don't know much about Assyria and the location.
Absolutely. So the northern regions of Iraq. So Iraq was split in half. The top part of Iraq was Assyria. The bottom half of Iraq was Babylon. And the reason why Assyrians claim Babylonian history is because Babylon and Assyria were constantly in civil wars. Assyria would conquer Babylon. Babylon would break free. Babylon would conquer Assyria, and back and forth for centuries. And so the majority of the time, Babylon was under Assyrian rule and Assyrian kings were elected into Babylon. So for that, the reason I say that is just so that you have an understanding of basically the whole entire region of Iraq was our country. The western parts of Iran were part of the Assyrian nation. The southern parts of Turkey were part of the Assyrian nation, and the eastern parts of Syria, Jordan, and even parts of Israel all the way down to Egypt at one point were part of the Assyrian nation. It was a gigantic chunk of the modern Middle East. And the reason why we don't have a country today where you go, where's Assyria on a map, is because after World War One ended, the French and the British were the ones that were, in the region of those worlds trying to extract as much resources as possible, realizing the riches that existed in the Middle East. It was untapped for the Western civilizations. And so after World War One ended, the British and the French basically betrayed their allies in the Middle East and decided to draw up arbitrary country lines and borders out of their agreement within themselves. So the French, there's a reason why when you go to Lebanon or parts of Syria, you hear them using French words, or their architecture is French, or their language, and you see French writing, is because they were French colonies at one point that they claimed for themselves after World War One. The British took Iraq and other parts of the Middle East. And so because of that, the reason why the Assyrians didn't get a country is because we sided with the British in World War One. We were betrayed by the British, unfortunately, and they did not fulfill their end of the bargain. They promised us they would give us land if we were to fight their wars for them, and basically the British used us as a proxy to fight the Turkish, the Ottoman, and the Kurds. We were massacred horrendously for centuries, especially during that time. They betrayed us. They drew up their own nations without even considering putting in Assyria in. There is speculation that the modern day Syria of today was them fulfilling their um, end of the bargain because they just simply confused the word Assyrian with Syrian. Syrian is a Greek corruption of the word Assyrian. There's ancient Greek philosophers and historians that went into the Middle East in that time, and they discovered Assyrian ruins, temples, villages, the remaining people there. And they corrupted the word Assyrian by abbreviating it from Assyrian to Syrian. It's a shorter version of it. And a quick Google search can prove that point to you. And because of that, when the French created their borders, they're like, "Oh, here's Syria. That fulfills the end of our bargain." But they completely left out our people. That's not our name. That's not who we are. We are not ethnic Arabs. We are ethnically our own group, and we have a very long, rich history. One of the oldest in the world, 6,775 years, I believe, is how old the Assyrian nation, ethnicity, and empire is till to this day.
Wow. So the Brits messed you up, kind of like what they did to Palestine, because, they say World War I, as far as Palestine, they prepared the land to the so called Jews. World War II was created to prepare the so called Jews to the land. And then you know about the Balfour Declaration and these so called Jews, Ashkenazis, that are not really Judean, they have no connection to the land, coming in ships to Palestine. And then terrorist organizations like Irgun, Haganah, bombing the King David Hotel, killing Brits and Palestinians of both Muslim Christian descent and Armenian Christians in that land, probably Assyrians as well, because we have a big community of Assyrian people. And then taking the land and saying, oh, we're just going to give these so called Jews just 8% of the land. And the story, how it went till today. And, they call us Arabs just like they call you guys Arabs because they don't know the history. But when you look at the DNA of the Palestinians, more than 70% of our DNA is from that land. They actually had a DNA test with Hopkins University. They took 100 Israelis that are Jews and 100 Palestinians that are Muslim and Christian. And the DNA showed that 95% of the so called Israelis have no connection to the land, while 85% of the Palestinians were from the land. So even though we're mixed just like you, everybody's mixed, there's nobody pure today, right? Because there has been so much colonization, raping, killing, the story of the world. And we realized that no, we're not really Arabs. Maybe we have 5 to 10% of Arab blood in us. We speak Arabic because we got Arabized, kind of like Assyrians in Iraq. They speak Arabic, obviously, and they speak Assyrian. And maybe, I don't know if you guys speak another language, but it's interesting that it was Europe, the Brits, the French. We didn't get too much of the Spain, but wow, so they try to help you with World War I. You fought for them, and they pretty much screwed you over.
They used us in World War One, and what happened was that there was an internal argument between a few very prominent Assyrians that were leading the charge at that time, and they were debating who they should go with. So there was a man who's a martyr, a hero in the Assyrian history books. His name was Freydun Aturaya, and he was a communist. And he, I believe, lived in Russia until the age of 35, until the Communist Party betrayed him and they murdered him. Uh, I believe he was poisoned at one point, but then he was executed. He had a wife and two kids. And he was advocating that the Assyrians, instead of siding with the British, to side with the Russian Communist Party. But the problem was is that he was a Christian. And the Russian Communist Party does not believe in Christianity. They believe in government is your God. And so, because he wasn't communist enough, the Communist Party betrayed him and murdered him. There was an Assyrian general. His name was Aga Putros. He's a very famous Assyrian general. You mention that name to any Assyrian, and they know that he was one of the greatest warriors that our people have seen in modern times, the last 100 years. And he led the charge on the battlefields. And it's suspicion on how he was murdered. He was murdered after the war, but he was the one who advocated. And I don't know the full history with what he did behind the scenes, but he fought on the side of the British. And so I assume that he was the one that was advocating that the Assyrians side with the British because they're the ones who are going to guarantee us our land and our country back if we were to back them and fight with them. And he was, I believe, poisoned as well and murdered. But there was a lot of betrayal by every side. We constantly were going to the peace agreement offerings. The Ottoman Empire stuck their hand out and said, "Hey, listen, we want to." give you guys a chance to surrender and make peace. And so they told our patriarch at the time to come and shake hands and we'll come and make an agreement. He agreed, our patriarch agreed, and he went, and they ended up assassinating him, the Kurds with the Ottomans. So we were constantly betrayed by every people. And maybe you could say that we were naive people and we didn't learn our lessons, and now this is the thing that we need to learn our lessons from. Makes our hearts a bit more harder and a bit more colder when it comes to the forefronts of strategy and world diplomacy. But yeah, we were betrayed multiple times, and these are things that we need to learn from.
Wow. Yeah, there has been a lot of turmoil in that region from all parts, and it's usually infiltrated from the outside if you start going down the rabbit hole. There's a lot of influence of the West and other forces that are really taking this whole region: Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Iraq. They're taking it to a really bad place. And I believe in coexistence. I don't have a problem with people as long as they're not trying to harm me. And I remember, like in the old city of Jerusalem, there was a big Assyrian community and there was the Assyrian flag. And like looking at the flag and looking at the area, like it never sparked anything bad to me. I'm like, oh, Assyrian people live here, cool. So how is the Assyrian population doing in modern day Iraq? Is there a big population, and how much do they keep from their traditional culture to the modern culture?
We were done so dirty in the Middle East, especially in Iraq. So before the '03 invasion of Kuwait by the United States government with the rest of the West, such as the British and Canada, I believe, there were about 4 million Assyrians, or sorry, 1.2 million Assyrians living in that region. Fast forward 23 years to today, there's less than 150,000 Assyrians in Iraq now. And the reason being is because the government doesn't protect us. The Kurdish act like they protect us, but as soon as ISIS came and invaded our villages, the Kurdish, who first of all disarmed the Assyrians, they told us we cannot have our own weapons. And they killed us. They destroyed families. They ripped us apart. If they found out that you had weapons. Disarmed our people completely. And then when ISIS came rolling in, they said, "Don't worry about it. We'll protect you guys." The second they saw an ISIS banner, they dropped their guns and they ran for the hills like cowards, and they didn't even bother fighting. They let our people get massacred. Matter of fact, it's a conspiracy that they planned this, that they acted like, gave us false sense of security so that we could drop our guns. And then when the enemy came and started beheading our people live on cameras in 2014 to 2016, until the Trump administration came in and actually tried to do something about it, and they just completely abandoned us. We had no chance of defending ourselves properly. And so there are units now. There's something called the NPU, Nineveh Protection Planes unit. There are a few other brigades and small militias there of the Assyrian armed forces that do amazing, brave, selfless work in protecting our people that remain in that region. When they have no support, no military, no navy, no air force, no tanks, no proper training. It's them figuring out everything from scratch, and now they are properly trained, now they are properly armed. Now they're doing the things that they can do to protect our people so that this doesn't happen again. Um, there was a second part of your question, which I want you to restate so I can make sure I hit it perfectly. But overall, the last 20 years, there's been a mass exodus from the Middle Eastern regions of the world. There are programs now that bring Assyrians back to visit their homelands, to go reconnect with their families. We do still have a very major imprint into the land. Our people are still there. Our roots are so deeply inserted into that land that you can never extract us fully. You can try to, but it won't work. We're too deep to the core of the earth and that region of the world. But yeah, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the second part is like, how much do they hold from their old culture to present day?
Yeah, it's completely intact. I mean, we in the Americas, whenever we go visit them. in Iraq or other regions of the world, they're blown away that we still know the language, that we know all the traditions, that we know the culture, we know the dances, we can cook the traditional foods. They're completely blown away. Like, you Assyrians in America speak Assyrian still? Like, they really, really don't understand how important and rich it is for us to maintain that connection, even though we are not in the original lands in which our ancestors were born in. And I credit that to the Assyrian Church of the East. The Assyrian Church of the East, when it was spreading all across the world, is what it did is it took our culture within the church and it plotted us in Germany, in France, in Great Great Britain, in America, in Canada, some parts of Spain. There are so many Assyrians all across the world now because the Assyrian churches were establishing and creating anchor points for our people to migrate to, and our communities were coming together at these churches because our holy liturgy was happening in Aramaic, the language that Jesus Christ spoke, like how you alluded to earlier. But it's not purely Aramaic. It's modern Aramaic mixed with Assyrian. So we just call it the Assyrian language. So there's aspects of Aramaic that we can understand. And it's a derivative of ancient Akkadian, which directly ties us to the ancient Assyrian empires. So our history is so deep rooted within the church as well that the church helped preserve our culture. And so here we cook the food, we do the dances, we dress in the garbs, we have all the songs. Our language is still very strong and alive, and with technology like ChatGPT and other languages, people who aren't Assyrian can just look things up. My friends nowadays who are Americans, white as snow, send me voice messages in Assyrian with AI now. I'm like, how the hell did you learn that, dude? Like, that's crazy. That's just absolutely insane to me that you can do that now.
So how do you say peace in Assyrian?
Shlama.
Shlama. We say salam. How do you
Salam
say,
alaikum, Ishlama. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, how do you say Jesus Christ?
There's a few ways. So, first, before I answer that, the Assyrian is a very poetic language. So, you could speak forward and backwards, pretty much like Arabic. And also, you could combine a lot of different words with contextual clues to create one word. So, we can say Maran, Isho. Uh, we, what's the most normal way of saying? You can say Brunit Allah, Son of God. You could say Isho Mshicha. Mshicha means the Messiah. Isho means
Ishom
Jesus.
Shicha. Yeah, that's what I
Isham
heard
Shikha.
before.
Yeah. So but we can say so many different ways to get to the same word that we're aiming to go for. But Isham Shikha is like the main one.
Ishom Shicha. We say Yasu'r al-Masih. Very close.
Mm.
Very close. Yasu'r al-Masih. Wow, that's beautiful, man. I would love to learn Assyrian, man.
You can
That
now, bro. You can learn it easily now.
Yeah, man. I would love to go to your community, bro, and just spend the week there and just suck up some of the culture and traditions and compare and contrast. That would be
Oh,
amazing, man.
if you're ever in Arizona, I was gonna say Assyria. If you're ever in Arizona, you let me know and I'll for sure take you around.
I will, bro. I will. Thank you for sharing all that. So, what was the problem with Kurdistan, Kurds? There's a lot of things I hear about Kurdistan. We didn't have much Kurds in Palestine, but I
Mm.
know there's problems with them in Turkey because of some promises. Then they have problems with Armenians. Then they have problems with Syrians. And I know that region from different countries was Kurdistan back in the day. And now you told me that they had problems with the Assyrians in modern day Iraq. Like, what happened to these people? Because I feel like, were they also screwed over? Were they deceived? Were told or paid to fight people? I mean, what's going on? Like, do you know much about that country or culture in general?
Yeah, so first of all, there's no such thing as Kurdistan. It's the Kurdish region of Iraq. Kurdistan doesn't exist. It's not a country and never will be. That's first. Second, the Kurds are a manipulative infestation in the Middle East. What they are is they're a derivative of the Persian people. They were nomadic people that came from the mountainous regions of Persia. If you do a linguistics test and you look at the Kurdish language or the Persian language, it comes to such a close similarity that you can see exactly where these people derive from. Their language sounds nothing like Arabic, nothing like the Turkish language. The Turks use them in World War One. The Turks don't even want them. The Turks have problems with them as well. And what happened was is that they after some time they migrated north into northern Iraq from the Persian region of the mountains that I was mentioning from. And then they decided to plot their land and try to settle where modern Assyria would have been. And the Kurds have a lot of division within themselves as well. But what happened was is that when the pre-invasion of Iraq happened with all the drama happening in the 90s during Saddam Hussein's regime. That's what it was a regime. Saddam Hussein was an evil dictator who needed to be uh, taken out and removed from that region of the world. But also, he did keep a lot of the people there in order because he understood the Arab mind. So it's a double-edged sword. You remove him, and you, in place, create 1,000 Saddam Husseins versus one strong Saddam Hussein that had everyone under his fist. Both those things can be true at once. He was needed for that region of the world, but he also needed to be removed because he oppressed the Assyrian people greatly. And there's going to be Assyrians that hear this and they don't agree. Well, that's because their family were part of the Ba'ath Party, and that's Saddam's plan. He wanted to divide and conquer our people as well, so that no one could really, not one group can really fully oppose him. So the same thing happened with the Kurdish people. So the Kurdish people, Saddam would claim he loved them, but then the whole gassing Halabja in the 90s happened. And then the Western media picked that up and used that as a foreshadowing justification reason to evade for WMDs in the Middle East. So we have so many different aspects of what's going on here. First, we have people who are trying to settle themselves in a region of the world that they don't belong in. That's the Kurds. Now you have a war by the United States of America that wants to evade Iraq for its resources. Pretty much established by now that we know that's a well-known fact. At that time, did they think that there were actually weapons of mass destruction? There's a strong argument to be made that they might have had the inclination because of lack of intelligence, being led astray by people who wanted Saddam to fall in Iraq, people like Al Janabi Curveball, whose brother was murdered by the Saddam Hussein regime. He went to the United States government, acted like he knew what he was talking about, told us that we had weapons of mass destruction, and then hoped that it would topple Saddam's regime to get revenge for his brother. We had leaks of information. So my point is that now there's a justification to move into the Middle East. There's chaos happening all around, and now the Assyrian people are just trying to live where our ancient ancestors and empires were originated from. We can tie directly from the ancient cuneiform documentation and what the ancient Greek historians like Herodotus wrote in their documents, that when they went to the regions of the world, they saw a direct continuation of the Assyrian people from the fall of the empire in 612 BC of Nineveh all the way to modern day. You can track our people century by century. The Medes had employed us in the years after the fall of Nineveh to their empire to do construction of temples. The Greeks documented this. You can find us in Persian cuneiform. The Persian kings would write about us and return our artifacts to Assyrian temples and say that he was a very progressive king because he wanted us to live without causing uprising and divisions and civil wars the same way the Assyrians and Babylonians did. The Persians were actually very smart. They wanted to keep people chill and use us as buffer states outside of the Persian Empire, so that when enemies came and invaded, the enemies that the armies and villages that the Persians controlled would fall first before the Persian Empire. So that's why they also wanted to keep the Assyrians around. So you can see a direct continuation of lineage of the Assyrians all the way to modern day in that region of the world. No other person has a claim to that land like we do. And listen, it's the same thing with America, with the Native Americans. They lost that land because they were not good enough to protect it. We weren't good enough to protect our land, unfortunately, when it came to all of the outside forces. We didn't stand a chance. The Western media, the invasion of Kuwait. I mean, the invasion of Kuwait, the invasion of Iraq, Saddam Hussein toppling over. There was so many external forces that it was just complete chaos where we just didn't have a chance to truly solidify ourselves in that region. Going back to the Kurds, when they saw Desert Storm operation commence, and the United States government placed no-fly zones on Saddam Hussein's regime. That means Saddam couldn't send helicopters to suppress Kurdish rebellion. And the reason why the Halabja was gassed in the first place, and the reason why Saddam hated Kurds through his actions, he might not have said it directly, but through his actions, he showed he hated Kurds, is because Iran, during the 1980s, all the way to 1988, was in war with Iraq, with Saddam. And so the Persians, the Iranians knew that if they could just send Kurds into the Iraq region and infiltrate and cause chaos and rebellions, that they could destroy the country from within and topple Saddam quicker. Iran used the Kurds to try to destroy Iraq. And Saddam saw this as treason. And so he did crimes against humanity. He gassed people. I don't believe innocent women and children should be murdered for the sins of their father or what their husbands do because they're savages. But innocent people died. And then the Assyrians were caught in the crossfire. The Kurds then used all of these atrocities used upon them to their advantage, and they solidified themselves in that region of the world, demanding to be called Kurdistan, even though they're not. And then the Assyrians became second fiddle. And what happened then was to make sure that the Assyrians wouldn't uprise against the Kurds, is that they started to find out that we had different religion sects within our nation, which is the Assyrians, Chaldeans, and the Arameans, the Syriacs, and they started to uplift the Chaldean name and to suppress the Assyrian name. And what that did was it caused uprising, upheaval, fighting within our nation so that we could be divided and conquered, so that we could never unify under one umbrella to go against the Kurds because they wanted to claim in that region of the world. You see, there's so many different layers of this. It's not black and white. There's not one answer to it. You have to really understand all aspects, all angles of history of what happened in that region of the world, from World War One all the way to the modern day invasion of Iraq, to get a full picture of what happened to the Assyrians in that region.
Wow, yeah, that's the devil's plan is divide and conquer, and they sure have divided all that region, drew fake borders, turned people against each other until today, and genocides, atrocities, ethnic cleansing all over the place. The Assyrians couldn't defend themselves. As you can tell, the same thing happened to my people. The Palestinians couldn't defend ourselves. We went from one colonizer to another colonizer. And then you look at what happened to Iraq, even Ben Zion Malkowski, aka Benjamin Netanyahu, was also had a hand in that, saying that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And he loves to say everybody has mass weapons of mass destruction, even though that Zionist state, as I call it, the Antichrist state, has actually nuclear weapons, and they're not really inspected. And a lot of the turmoil that is happening today in what they call Middle East, because that's what America calls it, it's supposed to be called West Asia, I guess, center of the world. The Western world and that Zionist state are doing a number on us. And I always pray that this colonizer hand is gone, where the people can just coexist, live together, regardless of their differences. That's what I want. I want peace. A lot of people don't want peace. I want peace, justice, and peace. So I believe Assyrians should be living in peace, just like as much as I live my people, the Palestinians should be living in peace, just like as much as Lebanese, everybody, bro, Armenians, everybody, man. Like I don't want to see killing and murdering and just this is not from God. This is from the enemy. So it's interesting that you guys were not able to defend yourselves, and that was a perfect description of Saddam Hussein, double-edged sword, because you need him but you don't. It's like he's protecting he's like a secular leader in a way, where you can have people of different faiths practicing, but he's also controlling everything. So it's kind of like you don't want him there, but you kind of do. The same thing is said about Assad of Syria. They called him a dictator, but then you are able to practice your faith freely, And the people of Syria are amazing and they practiced freely till the same people that came to kill you came to kill the Syrians, ISIS, right? ISIS came and then they bring Al Qaeda member and he becomes the president of Syria. You go from one guy that you didn't like, but he still kind of controlled Syria, to another guy that nobody likes that was wanted, and he becomes the president of Syria. And he's in the White House, buddy buddy with Trump. He's putting cologne on him. And I see that and I'm like, what is happening, man? Like you see that and you're like, this is a guy who's a head shopper. That's what I call him. He's a head shopper, right? And you look at groups like ISIS, they attack everybody in the so-called Middle East. They never attack the Zionist state. Makes you ask questions like, why are they never attacking the Zionist state, but they're attacking Iraqis, Assyrians in Iraq, Syrians. They probably try to get their hands on Lebanon. Lebanon is 40% Christian, and there's other minorities. They probably can't wait to try to murder Christians and other minorities. And how do you think we can end this turmoil and get the Western hand and the Zionist hand out of that world, and kind of like coexist? What do you think is the solution?
There's a few things. So one, at the end of the day, when I look at politicians mingling with each other, I don't take any politicians seriously. Like there's an Assyrians for Trump movement that happened between 2016 and 2024 during the election cycles, and when Trump finally tried to even mention us, give us a shout out on stage last year, he called us Azure Asians. He didn't even pronounce the name right. So it showed me that like 8 years of campaigning for this guy, we couldn't even get the respect we deserve by pronouncing our name correctly. So that's one thing. He doesn't give a shit about us, and nor will any politician in America ever will, because it doesn't benefit them. So when it comes to reestablishing peace and your own capabilities of defending yourself, I actually, as much as you don't like Israel, look at them as an example on how they even get to have a chance in existing in the Middle East. So first of all, they're surrounded by their enemy. And the only way that I really see them not being affected in such a catastrophic way throughout these whole entire uh all these decades, 80 years about ever since they were established after World War II, I believe it was in 1948, is that they had Western backing. And so they have the Iron Dome, they have funding from America, they have all these things that keep them from being completely destroyed from all of their external enemies. You have Egypt from the south, you have Muslim nations on their right, above them, well, above them is Palestine, but I mean above Palestine. Um, so how do they exist? Allies. Okay. Assyrians. You're surrounded by your enemy the same way Israel is. You have Muslim radical nations and Islamist groups, terrorist organizations all around you. You have Turkey in the north. You have Baghdad in the south. You have Syria, which has its own terrorist organizations in the west. And then you have Iran in the east. Now, here's a problem with that. Assyrians, because the borders were drawn up arbitrarily, split our nations apart. During the 1980s and 1988 war between Iran and Iraq, what the Muslim countries were doing was they were sending the Christians to the front lines to kill each other. Guess what? Who are all the Christians? It's the Assyrians. They were sending Assyrians to kill Assyrians in the front lines. Brother and were shooting against brother. Father was shooting against sons. Cousins were killing cousins. They didn't even know it. And so when you try to establish peace within one country for the Assyrians, you go, okay, well, you're surrounded by your enemy. Well, how do you do that? How do you avoid that? It's being able to have allies to protect you if you want to reestablish yourself in that region of the world. Well, how do you do that? Well, you need to be able to provide them an incentive to protect you. So that means you have to be producing some type of good for them, revenue, intelligence, something that makes people want to side with you, because this is a transactionary world that we live in. It's not a turn the other cheek world we live in. This is a fallen world. And if you want to survive in a fallen world, you have to play the games of a fallen world, unfortunately, which is why there's a lot of criticism of the Assyrians, um, who aren't very huge Assyrian of the East, Assyrian Church of the East people, where they say the patriarch should be our leader. It's like, really, you want the patriarch to be the de facto leader of the Assyrian nation? They have to get their hands dirty to do what political leaders like Trump, like the new president of Syria is, who was at 19 years old part of Al Qaeda. like a Saddam Hussein. You want the patriarch to have blood on his hands? Seriously? You want the politicians lie all the time. You want the version of our pope lying because he has to be the leader? There's no other leaders that are capable of coming up through the ranks and taking the burden off of that man so he can focus on everything he needs to do and be the person who preaches Christ and keep our Assyrian church going. That shouldn't be his burden. You shouldn't be corrupting that man's soul. That role, you want that role of being the president or leader of a nation who goes and does all of the political work and getting your hands dirty? That's a person who doesn't care about his soul. Go ahead, pick that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, politicians, man, they just, they're crooked, man, and they just try to fill their pockets and do what's good for them and their family. Like, even if you look at the Palestinian, I guess, government, whatever you want to call it, in the West Bank, as they call us, the West Bank, whatever remains out of Palestine, because they took the whole land pretty much. But yeah, man, the money goes to the West Bank, the Palestinian government, PLO, or whatever you want to call it. And then you look at the sons of the so-called president, and they have 7 cars, and they have mansions, and then they just have all these outfits. And then you look at the rest of the people over there, and they're poor and they're struggling, and we're already dealing with occupation and apartheid. And yeah, man, they're just all around the world, bro. I don't trust no man. I don't trust these governmental people. I think the power is with the people, but the people are so asleep and so easily divided. But what would your dream be as an Assyrian in that region and for your people?
My dream would obviously be to have a place where we could return to, not live there. I would never leave America. But for our people to freely go back to without worrying that an external force is going to be sending a bomb into our neighborhoods, where our women won't be kidnapped, where our children can go to schools and actually learn without worrying about animals coming in through the holes of the walls of the school because the Kurdish won't give enough funding so that when the kids are studying in the wintertime, you see snow coming in and dust and dirt flying in through the cracks in the walls because the holes are so big and the chairs are all destroyed and decrepit so the kids can't sit comfortably and learn. The textbooks are written in their own language. That would be a beautiful thing, but it's not. Their textbooks are hand-me-down Kurdish books because they don't want the Assyrians to learn their language, so they're teaching their kids, the kids there, to learn the Kurdish language instead of the Assyrian language. Do you see what they're doing? They're indoctrinating the kids there too. My dream is for that the Assyrian kids there can learn in their own language in a comfortable, safe environment where they're not freezing, where wood isn't sticking into their hands when they put their hands on their desks, where they have whiteboards to write on and learn from, where they actually have pharmacies that can be established brick and mortar instead of pop-up shops being rolled in on carts whenever they get the funding from the people in America giving it to them. Infrastructure, removal of rubble, places where they can go into the oldest churches in the world and not being worried that if a suicide bomber is going to run in there and blow up half of the congregation because they just wanted to go in there and pray to Christ. That's
Yeah,
my dream.
that's a beautiful dream, and I hope it becomes a reality. A similar dream to me as a Palestinian, bro.
You
I
know, we
can
have a lot of
grow.
similarities with that because
Yeah.
I always tell people, is like, if I showed you a picture of a Syrian school in the Kurdish region of Iraq, and if I told you without any context, hey, this is Gaza right now, people would be like, oh my God, this is horrible. Look what's happening. And I go, ah, no, no, actually, it's not. It's, this is in Iraq. And they go, oh, okay, whatever. They don't care. It's not the news today. That's why I don't care. But the thing is that our people are in similar conditions. They're in absolutely horrific conditions. And I'm sitting here in a nicely air-conditioned home with a jacket on in a wintertime with food in my belly from a Thanksgiving feast we had last night. I don't have worries like they do. How can I ever understand that? That's why I don't speak on a lot of people's behalves over there because I don't have their struggles. So I try to be the voice for them on this side of the world so that if my little corner of the internet that actually tries to listen can maybe spread some news and have conversations with their friends, and then that spreads a little bit more through social media, and some right people see it and who actually have a heart and soul and they try to do something about it, and then I keep doing my actions that I'm doing here behind the scenes too. There's beautiful organizations that help Assyrians back home. Um, the Assyrian Aid Society is one I've been donating to every month for the last 5 years, 6 years now. It's going into 2026. My mom and dad have been heavily involved in that since I was a kid, always contributing, donating, just trying to be stewards of our people as much as we can and contributing. All the Assyrians, honestly, in the West, contribute as much as they can to the people back home. It's just the realization of if you want to reestablish yourself in a region, it probably shouldn't be back home. It should be somewhere else. But keep that bridge with your home nation, your original land. Keep that bridge very strong and make sure that connection is there and support the people that are still there. But to reestablish ourselves there, it would be very difficult without major political backing.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see the external forces gone that are funding all these extremist groups, creating, arming them, funding them, and creating division. Having the regular people that want to live in peace, regardless of their faith differences. Just you go to the mosque, he goes to the synagogue, you go to the church, you go to the Catholic Church, Orthodox Church, whatever, right? Sunni, Shia, all those divisions. And I don't even know what the Kurds practice because I never had a Kurdish friend. But
There's like less than 5% that are kind of Christian, and then the majority of them are Muslim.
is it a different sector? Do you know of Islam or is it similar to
It's
Sunni?
not it's not Sunni. It
It's
might be
not
Shia.
Shia. Hmm.
It's not Shia.
I don't
It,
know. Maybe it's
it
Shia.
might be it might be Shia because we can look this up just to prove it, but it's not Sunni because Saddam was a Sunni Muslim and the Sunnis stuck with the Sunnis, especially being the minority group in Iraq.
Yeah, yeah, I know Iraq is mostly Shia. Yeah, but I mean, it would be beautiful, man, to remove all the external forces that are funding these and creating these extremist groups when you think about it. They're not your neighbors try to come there and just kill you. It's these are armed people with a agenda to divide and conquer, kill, and they're crazy. They're demonic. So I wish we can just somehow remove the interference, remove these extremists, bro, and like if Palestine was free, bro, I wouldn't live in America. If I can have Palestine how my grandparents had it with no division, peace, I wouldn't want to live in America because my country is beautiful over there and the culture and the food and the ocean. So it would be the same for you if you can have your space and have your protection and no outside forces try to come and kill you or expel you. I mean, it'd probably be amazing, bro, because it's a beautiful region. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was born and raised in America, so for me it's a bit different. I could never acclimate to Middle Eastern countries. I've been to Jordan, I've been to Lebanon. I lived there basically for a month in 2018, the summer of 2018, to visit my family back home in Amman and Beirut. And so um I- when I came back to America, I kissed the floor. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's different. You're born and raised here, bro. It's a whole different
Yeah,
world.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that makes sense, man. I think if I was born here, then I want to be here, of course. Yeah, I can
Mhm.
only imagine. You know, I came here when I was 21, so I've been here almost half my age, and I miss home a lot. I like things about America, and I hate some things here. I like things back home. I hate some things. But you know, America gave me it didn't give me support, but it gave me freedom. Since we're occupied back home, I don't have freedom. The ceiling is the limit, not the sky. Any moment, an Israeli soldier can shoot me just for being non Jewish, non Israeli, Palestinian. Doesn't matter if I'm Christian or Muslim, Armenian or whatever. So, not dealing with that here, unless I break the law, it's a good thing because then I'm safe. I can arm, I can protect myself, I can buy guns. I can't buy guns back home because then I'm going to be a terrorist according to the Zionist state. So, here I have the amendment to bear arms, freedom of speech, which is slowly taken away from us, if you notice. But yeah, America's. I think it's a place where people can coexist, but we're seeing a lot of turmoil in the United States, and it's been happening for a long time. And you know, the influence of foreign lobbies like APAC on America is like a stranglehold it has on its neck, and I wish they can just cut that off and really make America great again, because America can be great. There's a lot of good things here that can become better. You always will have different mindsets politically. I'm not a political person, bro. I'm not conservative. I'm not liberal. I'm kind of like more biblical. And I think if Jesus came here, he will be flipping tables and beating Trump, Biden, whatever, with his belt or his his sandals or whatever he might come bearing. But yeah, man, I think since you're born here, obviously you wouldn't want to go nowhere else. Well, let's switch gears here. Gaza. You've seen what's been happening to Gaza. I think nobody is not unaware of what's happening. What was your perspective, feelings, as a Christian, seeing the murder of innocent people, the bombing of hospitals, schools, religious entities, mosques, churches, ancient structures? Gaza's a 5,000-year-old city, biblical,
Hmm.
and you're seeing all this bombing, and they're telling you the bad guys are hiding here and lying, and then they're bombing it, and they make people run to the east, and then they bomb them, and then they give them tents, and then they bomb the tents, and pictures of children's missing arms and legs. And I've never seen, I'm not saying that because I'm Palestinian, but I've never seen anything like that in my whole life. And what did that bring to you from trauma that your people experience, and what were your thoughts about everything happening there?
I learned a lesson when Ukraine and Russia happened that social media is one of the biggest divisive pieces that contributes to the thing called the fog of war. What I saw with Gaza made me delete Twitter because I didn't care if who started what happened when. Seeing a father holding his dead daughter in a rubble, it does something to a human being on a level where it's it's pure evil. I don't care. Listen, I deleted Twitter because all these videos that were popping up early on, I didn't care who was. I saw Jewish people murdered, that killed me. I saw Muslims murdered, that killed me because those little kids didn't deserve anything. A child is not responsible for the sins of their father. Innocent women, regardless on which side of the borders they're on, is not responsible. And people on the internet would be like, "We'll pick a side. Who whose side are you on?" No, no, I'm on Jesus' side. Jesus says, "Don't kill one another." He told his disciple to put his sword down, and he healed his enemy's ear. That's why I wouldn't make a good leader for the Assyrian people, because the Assyrian people, in order for us to reclaim land, we need to shed blood. Any war you see that demands that land be reclaimed, whether it be Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine, they're shedding blood. And so the Assyrians that they this internal rally were like, we need our land back. Do you understand what that calls for? Do you not see these wars happening? Innocent children are being murdered because of the power hungry pits of black holes in the souls of these men who claim to be leaders in these regions of the world. They're willing to shed that blood because it's not theirs. You can't have me in that position. I'll never do that. I'd rather have no nation than to corrupt my soul for the rest of eternity and have Christ look at me and say, "I never knew you. Be gone." For 80 years maybe on this earth. I always say that if I'm lucky, looking at my genetics on my mom and dad's side. If I'm lucky, I get 80 years if nothing else goes wrong. I get on this earth. I blinked and I'm 26 years old. I blinked. I have gray hair since I was 18. I'm gonna blink again. I'm gonna be 50. I'm gonna blink one more time. 3 blinks away from 80 years old, and then I'm gone forever from this earth. No one's gonna remember me. No one's gonna remember this interview. But Christ will remember my soul for all eternity. And so when I see acts like this, regardless on which side they're on, I go, "That's soulless. That's evil." Um, The children of Gaza and Palestine, one of the oldest churches in the world was destroyed in the middle of the war, you know? That was horrible. Um, but here's another thing I'll say about that. I know a lot of Israelis, man, as much as I know you're anti-Zionist, but as much as you're anti-Zionist, that's the government that's doing this. There's a lot of people in that country that don't support what's happening, and vice versa. The people are always the one that pay the price. The Assyrians saw that, the Palestinians see that, some of the Israelis see that, and it's not in the control of themselves. I bet you if you ask a lot of people, they would all say, "Hey, let's stop killing each other." It's the government.
Yeah, man. I believe, you know, that, I mean, the problem with that Zionism is Jewish supremacy, right? So they don't want that land to have Christians or Muslims. Before 1948, Christians used to be 30% of the population. Now we're 1% of the population. People think the Muslims have been killing us. And I'm like, no. Is the
How did you end up being part of that minority Christian group? Why wasn't your family Muslim?
Well, I come from a multi-faith family. So my dad was a secular non-believer. My mom dabbled with Catholicism and Orthodoxy. But most of the Palestinians, um, Christians that I know, like they're one of the first Christian. We're the stones of Christianity. The Palestinians over there, the Christians, especially that are still clinging to that land. And people say, "Oh, we're not from there. Oh, we came from somewhere else. Oh, we're Arabs and stuff." But the DNA test will clearly show you where we're from. And if you really dig deeper than that, you will find out that based on our DNA and our ancestry, we were the Judeans that were in that land. That when Christ came, obviously not me, I'm talking about the ancestors. When Christ came, the Judeans, because in English they say Jew, the real term is Judean. The Judeans that found Christ became known as Christians. The deniers of Christ became known as Jews. So the Judeans are not the Jews. And then when Islam came, some converted, some were forced to convert. So some of those Judeans, some of those Jews, and some of those Christians became Muslim. So if you look at the DNA, you'll find out it's the same really people with different beliefs. But being a Jew, because you deny Jesus Christ, you're still were from there. But the Ashkenazis are from Europe. So 80% of the Jews around the world, or maybe 85% of them, are Ashkenazi, Eastern European Jews, and Ashkenaz comes from Gomer, and Gomer's from Japheth, not from Shem, according to Noah's children, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So Ashkenaz, where the Ashkenazis come from, they come from Japheth. They're not Semites. That's why Israelis have the highest skin cancer rates in the world, and they're allergic to olive trees and olive oil. Guess what Palestine is full of? Sun and olive
Olive.
trees. So that shows you that they're not indigenous. And then that religion, which is an antichrist religion that came called Judaism, because Christians don't come from Judaism. Judaism is rebellious against Christ, and they believe in their own Messiah, which will be the antichrist. That's what I truly believe. So we
What do
need
you
to.
mean? What do you mean Christians don't come from Judaism?
Judaism was a rebellious religion against Christ. What we come is from Old Covenant Christianity.
Okay, I feel like that's just more of I feel like that's just a game of titles though, because you look at the Old Testament, it's the Jewish religion. That was the foreshadowing message that Christ is coming. So in a way, we were also at one point the believers of the Jewish Bible. Still have to believe the Bible. Christ doesn't denounce the Bible. He
Well, it's
uses a lot
called
of the
it's
verse.
called the Hebrew Bible, not the Jewish Bible.
Okay,
There's a
I mean
big
that's a
difference.
good point.
Yeah, there's a
But
big
also,
difference.
well, the Hebrew is the language, right? But the people who spoke Hebrew, those were the Jews.
Well, modern day Hebrew is not ancient Hebrew. Modern day
Right?
Hebrew was created in the 1800s by a Russian Jew.
See, I don't know anything about that, but that if that's true, that's interesting. But there are ancient documents, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, and ancient Aramaic. parts of the Old Testament are written in Aramaic too. We Assyrians can't read them fully, but we
Mm.
said we still speak Aramaic. So that is interesting. The linguistics part of it is very interesting. But I feel as if I recall that there were Jews that were able to read the original Hebrew.
Well, Jews in Palestine, when in the times of Christ, were I don't want to call them Jews, Judeans. They were speaking Aramaic. They were not speaking Hebrew. Hebrew is a dead
Well,
language.
Well, you could say the same about Aramaic because Aramaic, Jesus spoke Aramaic and he also spoke Hebrew. Jesus spoke both languages. He spoke Aramaic on purpose when he was speaking to the lowly classes because the Hebrew language was viewed as the intellectual scholarly language that he would speak with the Pharisees in, and the common people, the peasants, you could say, he spoke with them in Aramaic to show his humility. So, um, I guess. I understand your point. I would like to look into that a bit further more. But to me, if a people claim that they derived from a religion, and that religion is also the same books that we practice in our religion of Christianity, then you know there's a derivative, there's similarities. They have to come to accept the New Testament as well in order for it to be full thing. But um, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess that's
I
where
think
my stance is on that.
the main thing that maybe you're not understanding is that the Ashkenazis are not real Jews from Judea. They adopted a religion, which was an
Dude, they're
anti.
not culturally Jewish. I do understand that part. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're not from the land. They're not the ones that walked with Christ, their DNA. These are converts that converted to a religion. Judaism today, if you want to say that it was Judaism 2000 years ago, that's where what Jesus practiced. It's not the same Judaism of today. Judaism of today, when they say Torah, they don't mean the first five books of the Old Testament. When they say the Torah, they're talking about the oral Talmudic Torah, which is the Talmud, which is demonic, the
I know
Mishnah,
what the Talmud is. Yeah.
yeah, the Mishnah, the Zohar, and the Kabbalah, which is mystical magic. Kabbalists are worshippers of the devil. And if you read the Talmud, you'll understand what they say about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Mhm. Yep.
So that is Judaism today. It's not what it was 2,000 years ago, and it was not from the Hebrew Bible. They went elsewhere after the rejection of Christ. It took its own form, and now these people that call themselves Jews, like the Ashkenazis, which are 80% of worldwide Jews, they're not the real Jews. So I believe those groups of people are what Jesus referred to in Revelation 2:9 as people that claim that they are Jews, but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Now, if that's 80 to 85%, that means the other 15% that call themselves Jews might have a connection to the land, but not if they're Ethiopian or Chinese or Russian or Brazilian or Argentinian. These are people that converted to the modern day Talmudic Judaism. So, what is a Jew today is not what a Jew was 2,000 years ago. So, for them to claim Judaism, that's our land, Jesus was a Jew, that doesn't mean anything to me. Plus, DNA testing is illegal in Israel for a reason.
Yeah. I was gonna bring that up, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, so that's what I mean when I say that. It's just that the devil is very crafty and very deceptive. Look at how much money that entity is taking for America to create all this chaos in what the so-called Middle East. Every bomb that dropped in Gaza is funded by me and you paying taxes, right? It's not fixing the drug situation in America. It's not closing the border. It's not feeding the veterans in the streets. It's not making America great again. We're sending money to Israel. We're sending money to Ukraine. We're sending money to Taiwan because we want to have those bases or control or suck resources. We're funding a country that is funding terrorist groups. For example, Israel is funding Azerbaijan, that is supposed to be a Muslim country, killing Armenian Christians. Israel is funding that. ISIS is Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. Okay, they never attacked Israel for a reason. Al Qaeda was created by the United States. They never attacked Israel, they attacked everybody else. So when you start really going down the rabbit hole, you will always find the rabbit without the letter T at the end. That's what you find. So you start looking in history, World War One, World War Two, the Bolshevik Revolution, where 95% of the Bolsheviks were communist Jews. They killed 80 million Christian Russians. They burnt more than 50,000 churches. And then they went to Germany to do the same. Then the Austrian painter, he said, not on my watch. Then you know how the story went. But just like your people were massacred, my people were massacred, and before our times, the Russians were massacred, and before that, I mean, there's so many people that were massacred and genocide and ethnically cleansed. But that group of people will always cling to their story of their Holocaust, and we are God's chosen people. And that Holocaust narrative is breaking down in front of our own eyes, and they're not God's chosen people. But America is so deceived with dispensationalism. The churches have no idea what's going on there. They don't know that they're killing Palestinian Christians. They think that the Israeli Jew is God's chosen people and the Palestinian Christian is not God's chosen people. So I think that's the big problem. And that entity uses that term Jew. They just throw it like, oh, we were there. We were always in the land. It's like, you're not even a real Jew. When I do my DNA, I'm the real Jew. Plus, biblically speaking, in the New Testament, according to Christ, we are Jews, being you, because it's the circumcision of the heart, not of the flesh. We are the seed of Abraham. Just because my DNA is from that land doesn't give me salvation. I'm not saved unless I believe in Jesus Christ. And that makes me the seed of Abraham. And that's me and you are called the elect, the chosen people. But just because we are, it doesn't mean we have to walk with arrogance and say, we are God's chosen people. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer of Christ. No, be meek, humble, feed the hungry, pray for your enemy, protect the oppressed. We're not protecting the oppressed, we're funding the oppressor, you know? So that's what I mean when I talk about that entity. It's not just because I'm Palestinian, it's because I'm Christian, you know? I'm Christian, and to me, that's my identity, and my identity starts in that land where Jesus comes from Bethlehem. So for them to erase my identity as a Palestinian simultaneously, they're erasing my Christian identity and heritage and faith and all that stuff. That is where this compassion or passion comes from. It's it's a righteous anger. And I don't think you would be if you were if they were doing the same thing to Assyrians and they're erasing you and you were from there and you were raised there and you dealt with them, you will have the same righteous anger as the Palestinian Christian, you know what I mean? But that's in a little bit of explaining to you and going back to the Hebrew. Modern day Hebrew is not ancient Hebrew. I always see when people get a tattoo of Yeshua and Yahweh in modern day Hebrew, and they're like, "Oh, this is Jesus and this is the Father name," and I'm like, "That's a antichrist fake language that was stolen from Arabic, Aramaic, infused with Yiddish and Latin, and ta-da, you have modern day Hebrew. It's not ancient Hebrew. That language is dead." And I can send you many books and many articles to read about the Russian that created that language, because the so-called Israeli Jews that think they're Semites, because if you say anything against Jews, you're anti-Semitic, even though I'm a Semite, you're a Semite. They're not
I'm a,
actual
I'm a
Semites.
double I'm
You're
a double Semite
double-edged sword.
because
You're
my ancestry is Akkadian and Assyrian. So like
oh wow.
that's double Semite. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're the Semites, and these people just stole identity and they came. The colonizer. This is the first time the colonizer does something like this. Most colonizers, they come to a land and they take it and they say that's ours now. But that new colonizer came and said, I want this land, and we come from that land. It's kind of like, imagine the Europeans came to America and say, actually, we come from this land. So this is what those people did. They came, took our land, and lied and said, we come from this land, while they have highest skin cancer in the world, and they're allergic to olive trees, and their DNA comes from the Khazarian Empire. I don't know how much you know about the Khazarian Empire, but the
Hmm.
Khazars were people that converted to Judaism. That's where Ashkenazi Jews come from. The king of Khazar where modern day Ukraine is. You had the Muslims coming from the east and the Christians coming from the west. And the Khazarian empire was a barbarian empire. And then the Christians were trying to take that land to dismantle that army, and the Muslims were coming from the east. So they had to convert. So they brought a priest and an imam to hear about their religion. Both people refer to something called Judaism, because Muslims believe in they're Jews and Christians believe there was Jews. So then the Khazarian Empire brought a rabbi, and when realized what the modern day Judaism teach, they decided to have a big conversion of these Khazars that had no religion to the Judaism. You can look it up. It's probably an easy Google search. You don't even have to go that deep. And that's where the Ashkenazis come from. They converted to this Talmudic religion that says Jesus is burning and boiling excrement and his
Hmm.
mom is a prostitute and whatnot.
Hmm.
And they came and then they say, oh, the Holocaust, they killed 6 million Jews, 6 million of us, and they, gas chambers and all that narrative that we learn in schools. And then they came in ships to Palestine. And what did they do? They took it over. They screwed us over. My grandpa's house was taken in Haifa, and he helped these people. He saw that they're getting oppressed, and as a Palestinian, he came and he let them in. What happens? They kick him out of the house. And I actually made a film about that called The Colonizer. You can check it out. It's on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. But it's the
Really?
story of,
Wow.
yeah, it's the story of Palestinians, specifically from the Christian eye, because that's what they did. And they didn't just do that to the Christians, bro. They did that to the Muslims. Like, they treated us the same. They still treat us the same. So I think a lot of people don't know exactly who these people are. And they're just catching up to season 75, episode 10 of the story, when they need to go back to season 1, episode 1. And that's why I I'm very outspoken about this, because the devil is now living in Jerusalem. You know, the devil has to copy God. So he created a fake Israel, he created the fake Jews, and he created the fake Judaism, and he's saying we're God's chosen people. Even though when you look at the Israel, we are the Israel, the believers of Christ. We are the Jews spiritually, and you know, we are the new Jerusalem that is not of this world. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." So we got the new Jerusalem. However, that's going to look like, I have no idea. And Western Christians are focused on the end times, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the beast. Oh, Iran. Oh, Russia. Oh, China." And I'm like, that is antichrist, man. That is not what Jesus wants us to do. We're not here to fulfill prophecies. We're here to preach the gospel, love our neighbor, and pray for our enemy. And I think I love that how you said about Assyria. In order for that to happen, then that will require a lot of bloodshed, and you're not with that because Christ is not with that. So that was beautifully said, man.
Listen, thank you. And I understand, I can hear the frustration when you're explaining things. And so I'm just curious, do you pray for Israel?
I pray for the Israelis, yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to do. Pray for your enemy.
That's the hardest part. I don't play for Israel because it's not Israel. Israel is a precious name. I pray for those people there.
When I say Israel, I mean the modern government,
Yeah, I
mainly,
pray
not,
for
yeah.
that they're deceived. I pray for the veil to be relieved out of their eyes. I pray that they found Christ. I pray that they find it in their heart to have mercy on my people. And it's very hard, especially the first year of the genocide, man, and they would not even call it a genocide. And I'm like, what do you want to call it? It's a Holocaust. It's very hard, man. It's very hard to
Mm.
pray for your oppressor and the killer of your family and the rapist of your mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have any advice on that?
I have yet to pray for my enemy.
Hmm.
Let's just put it that way. I wouldn't be the best person to ask that. I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And I
Hmm.
know that blaming my age for the things that I'm lacking in isn't the best strategy. But at the end of the day, I'm 26. I'm a young man who has a boiling point in his blood. And so for me, knowing pray for your enemy and all these. That's why I brought it up with you. It's a very challenging thing, and it doesn't excuse me not to do it. It's going to take time for me to truly do it. I don't want to just do it when then my heart's not meaning it. That's just what the Pharisees did, tradition at that point. It's not true intentional relationship building with your Lord. So I'm trying to crack the hardness of my heart before I approach a false sense of prayer.
Mm. Yeah, it's
I
it's
want to
the
mean it.
toughest thing. It's the toughest thing
Yeah.
you can do. You know, the first year seeing what they're doing in Gaza. I mean, how can you, right? But I think you also have to look out to understand what did he mean by praying for your enemy. It's not the same prayer you pray for the oppressed. It's a different prayer. Obviously, inside of me, I want to damn them and may God have his way and, destroy them. And that comes out. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I see stuff and I'm like, may God damn them, right? And that's
Hmm.
not how
Hmm.
we're supposed to pray. But then in moments, I see how brainwashed they are and they don't see what they're doing. Remember, Christ, Lord, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing. So that's kind of more of my prayer. May the Lord have mercy on them because they don't know what they're doing. I pray that they have an encounter with Jesus Christ. May the Holy Spirit dwell in their heart and that whatever is in their eyes like removed. And I pray that the new generation will wake up and see us as humans. I wake up there is peace. I wake up that we can just live as one nation, share the land, which is a pipe dream because if somebody comes takes half your house and rapes your mom, how can you live with them, right? But I have hope because I have Jesus. And
Hmm.
if that situation does not get resolved in our lifetime, and no man or woman can resolve it, or government, or army, or bloodshed, or resistant fighters, or whatever, I think it's all going to finish when Christ comes and he's going to be the one who's going to end it. Because, you know, a lot of those people there, especially the religious Zionists in that land, they are conjuring the Antichrist. Now, we don't know who the Antichrist is. We don't know if it's going to be a person, a system. Jesus spoke in parables. And Revelation, when you read it, your mind can go all over the place. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And, Jesus was the third temple. So when I see people want to build an actual third temple on a place that is holy to Muslims and usher in Jesus, it just does not sit well with me. And I think it's anti God and anti Christ. We're not supposed to be aiming for Armageddon where everybody's going to get killed. So if we are not able to stop this because we are sometimes powerless as people physically, but spiritually we can be strong because after all, we're not fighting against flesh, but spiritual warfare. We can just pray, man. We pray. We will protect our family when we have to. That should be something that we are allowed to do. But I don't believe in killing people. I don't believe that's the solution. We've been getting killed ever since that entity stepped foot in that land. And now it's getting worse. And seeing what happened in Gaza is worries me because who's next? Is it the West Bank? Is it Lebanon? Is it Syria? Who's next? And to see it happening for 2 years really scare me because nobody interfered. And then when you see that Zionist state, how much control it has around the world, especially in America, it also scares me. It scares me in a way that I don't see there is a solution to the problem, right? But
Hmm.
I have hope in Jesus, and I pray that I can I can live to see him come back where every knee will bow and he can end the antichrist and bring justice and bring the truth. And I know the children that are getting massacred are with Jesus because children are innocent. I know they have a one-way ticket to heaven. And now, how is God going to deal with oppressed people that don't follow Christ, even though they follow their religion? They try to be good people, but they're not Christians. But they die in such a way, like the Gazans and the Muslims in Gaza. That's God's job. That's not my job.
Hmm.
God is
Right.
merciful. We don't know how he's going to tackle that in Judgment Day. I'm talking about the righteous people, you know. There's righteous people in every faith. People
Sure.
have conscience, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know how God is going to deal with those, and I don't know how he's going to deal with the conscious Israelis as well. But as far as that entity, the Zionist state of Israel, 85% of the people that said that what's happening in Gaza is not enough. So you're talking about only 15% that are against the genocide. That's a good number because most people think it's 100%. So there are Israelis that want to coexist, and I'm open to that. But I'm not willing to coexist with the people that want to kill me.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Understandable.
yeah. So those people cannot be in a place where I want to live and be equal because according to
Hmm.
their beliefs, I'm a goy, I'm a cattle, I'm a Gentile. I deserve to be killed and raped. I don't want to live around people like that. But if you're a Jew, a righteous Jew that believes in the Torah, that okay, you don't believe Jesus is the Messiah, that's fine. You're not here to hurt me. We can talk about Jesus. I can plant a seed. I'm willing to live with you. And I'm willing to live with Muslims that respect Jesus Christ, don't see his deity, and have a civil conversation with them in Palestine. I'm willing to live side by side like they lived before 1948. But with the Zionists that don't see me as a human being, I don't think I can do that. It's impossible. You know what I mean?
The way that you are expressing your frustration towards a certain group is the same way that I feel about radical Islam. I
Hmm.
get it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's radical Judaism. Yeah. Very similar, very similar extremism and oppression, using the religious religion as a tool to kill.
Yeah, I mean, the Assyrians were heavily suppressed for centuries because of the jizya tax and not converting to Islam, and they became second-class citizens in their own country. Uh, their churches were converted into mosques. The women were taken and, like how you were saying, raped. And a lot of the Assyrians today who claim that they're Muslims because they and their ancestors or grandfather's father were forced converted. I know people from when they were escaping to America uh, from ISIS where they had a gun in their mouth in front of their mothers and fathers and said, "Convert or I'll kill you." Didn't convert. Stuck his faith, crying, tears coming out of his eyes while there was a barrel of a gun in his mouth. And for some reason, that ISIS member didn't kill him. And he said, "All right, leave and never show your face here again."
Mm,
So I know people personally that went through these stories. And when I think of that, I'm like, man,
mm,
what would I have done in that situation? I
mm.
probably would have been a coward back then. My faith wasn't that strong when I was a kid, when I was younger, up until 18, 19. I might have been a coward. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I say the same thing. If I was in Gaza right now, what would I do? What kind of resistance would I join? Would I join the resistance of being a medical person helping the injured? Or would I join the resistance of journalism that are getting killed, the journalists? Or would
Mhm.
I join the armed resistance to fight for my people? You know, I don't know. You don't know till you're put in that situation what you would do, right?
Yep.
Regardless of your faith, when you see stuff like this happening to your land and your people. Yeah, that's what I say. In Gaza, there's only three jobs right now: resisting with a gun, resisting with the medical field, and resisting with journalism.
Mhm.
Every journalist got killed. Every medical person got killed, and every resistant fighter is getting killed as far as armed resistance. So, yeah, man. I don't know. It's heartbreaking what's happening, and nobody can say they're not seeing what's happening there. And I pray, man, I pray for that to end because it's a lot, man. It's a lot. I can't take these images off of my head,
I
you know?
understand, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Emmanuel, brother, man, I love you, man. I feel like I got to know you today. And if you are here, bro, we will kick it and we'll become probably best friends, bro.
Hey, you're a strong man of your faith. I can get down with anyone like that, man. It was an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me again. Hopefully one day we can do this again. And I'm gonna definitely check out that the movie you said that you have out. Please send me all the information on that. I'll watch it as soon as possible.
I will, brother. Before you go, tell the audience where they can. I know you have a podcast, so you can tell them where they can find you and also how they can find your account as well.
Sure. If you just look up my name, Emmanuel Romanos, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Or if you do at Lazy Intellectuals, which is my brand's name, you can find my YouTube channel and my specific page for lazy intellectuals on Instagram as well. The majority of my content's on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. We are finally catching up on Facebook, so you can find a lot of it there. If you're interested in mafia interviews, religious interviews, and some we do some things in between the lines, like sports interviews as well, with some big sports figures that, like for example, I spoke about the Armenian genocide with a former NBA player, Enes Kanter, who's Turkish, and got him to recognize the genocide and speak openly about it against his government. So we have a lot of conversations like that with some really cool people. And yeah,
Wow, that's beautiful, man. I gotta watch that episode.
on my YouTube.
All right, I'll check it out. Well, Emmanuel, as we say, Allah Ma'ag, God with us. Emmanuel, it's a pleasure having you, brother. May God keep on blessing you, bro, and thank you for keeping the faith as well.
As we say in Assyrian, Allah minno. Thank you.
Allah minno. See you, brother. Peace. All right, guys, you heard it from Emmanuel. What an amazing human being. Hearing his story, we can draw so many parallels. As a Palestinian and him as an Assyrian, living in an occupied land, and I'm living in an occupied land as Christians, we have a lot in common, man. That's pretty wild. Until then, Christ is King, and always free Palestine.